All right, let's dive into the fascinating and, frankly, brutal economics of the commercial aircraft industry. We're going to figure out why our massive, wide-open sky really only has room for two giants. So think about the last time you flew, and the flight before that, and probably the one before that too. Can you remember the kind of plane it was? I'm willing to bet you've been flying on pretty much the same two brands your entire life, and maybe you never even realized it. It's kind of weird, right? I mean, think about it. We live in a world with dozens of car brands, tons of phone brands, all fighting for your business. But when it comes to the gigantic jets that fly us across the world, it's just two, Airbus and Boeing. That's pretty much it. So what's the deal? Why? Well, the answer isn't some big conspiracy. It's actually the result of an absolutely brutal economic reality that I called the double whammy. It's this punishing combination of two incredibly difficult industry cycles that just completely crushes almost anyone who dares to compete. Okay, so punch number one is what we call the long product cycle. This just means that to develop a new plane, you need a truly mind-boggling amount of research, a staggering amount of money, and maybe most importantly, a whole lot of time. It is an unbelievably expensive and incredibly slow process. And here comes punch number two, the long sales cycle. So in this market, you're not selling to millions of people, you're selling to a handful of massive companies, the airlines, and they're buying a very small number of extremely expensive planes. These deals take years to work out and are built almost entirely on trust. This chart really puts it all into perspective. You've got industries like fashion that are fast, quick to make, quick to sell. Then you have something like pharmaceuticals, which is long fast. Takes forever to develop a new drug, but once it's approved, it sells pretty quickly. But look way over there in the bottom right corner. That's commercial aviation. It is the ultimate long industry. Both building the thing and selling it are just incredibly hard. So let's really dig in. First up, let's break down just how punishing that product cycle is. And I'm not kidding when I say it's the product cycle from hell. This isn't just long and expensive. It's a marathon of risk that almost no company on Earth can survive. Just to get started, to even get in the game with the brand new aircraft design, a company has to be ready to spend $20 to $30 billion. That's just the entry fee. And get this, that massive investment, you won't see a single dollar of revenue from it for nearly a decade. A full 10 years of just burning cash, with nothing coming in. Now, why does it cost so much and take so long? Well, because a modern airliner is like a giant flying jigsaw puzzle with over 1 million individual parts. And every single one of those parts has to work perfectly while flying at 35,000 feet. The complexity is just on another level. And all that complexity means you can't just tweak things. You can't just say, hey, let's add an extra row of seats and make a bit more money. Nope. That one tiny change throws off the plane's weight distribution, messes with fuel efficiency, and triggers a whole cascade of retesting and brand new safety certifications. It's exactly why Airbus and Boeing prefer to just update their old, trusted designs like the A320 and 737. Starting from scratch is just too painful. And here's the real kicker. Even if you had the money and the time, you'd run into an even bigger wall. Building the global network of trusted suppliers for things like engines and electronics, that might actually be harder than building the plane itself. Airbus and Boeing have had decades to lock in all the best suppliers. For a new company, trying to build that from scratch is, well, it's pretty much impossible. Okay, so by some miracle, you survived the product cycle from hell. Amazing! Congratulations! Now you have to actually go sell the thing, and guess what? That sales cycle is just as brutal. And here's a wild fact for you. Most airlines don't even buy their planes. Yeah, about 58% of all commercial jets are leased. And why? Well, because trying to predict how many people will be flying a decade from now is basically impossible, and planes lose their value really fast. Leasing just gives airlines way more flexibility. This creates another massive wall for any new competitor, something called fleet commonality. You can see it perfectly on this chart. Indigo has built its entire airline around the Airbus A320 family, and Southwest is famous for only flying Boeing 737s. And there is a very good reason they do this. The cost to switch to a different manufacturer is absolutely enormous. Think about it. If an airline brings in a new type of plane, they have to retrain all of their pilots, stock a totally different inventory of spare parts, and create brand new maintenance routines. It's so much cheaper and more efficient to just stick with the company you already know. That creates an incredible amount of customer lock-in. So the theory makes sense, right? But the real-world proof is, well, it's even more convincing. The history of aviation is basically a graveyard, littered with the ghosts of really smart, well-funded companies that tried to break this duopoly and failed spectacularly. A perfect example is Canada's Bombardier. They designed the C-Series, which by all accounts was a technically brilliant, super efficient jet, but the development costs almost bankrupted the entire company. Then they got slammed in a price war with the big two, and in the end, they were forced to sell their amazing new plane to Airbus. And they are not alone, not by a long shot. Brazil's Embraer, Russia's UAC, Japan's Mitsubishi, even the American military titan Lockheed Martin, they've all tried and failed to make a dent in the large passenger jet market. It's just a repeating pattern of failure. You know, you'd think if anyone could pull it off, it would be a superpower like China, right? But even with the full backing of the state, it's a monumental challenge. China's Comac has built its C-99 jet, but it still has to use Western engines, and crucially, it doesn't have the international safety certifications it needs to fly in most places around the world. So, when you put all these pieces together, the insane costs, the decade-long timelines, the sticky supplier networks, and the totally locked-in customers, you can only really arrive at one conclusion. And this is the most important takeaway of all. This duopoly isn't the result of some secret backroom deal or some grand conspiracy. It is the natural, completely inevitable outcome of an industry with what might be the most brutal economics in the world. And this quote it nails it perfectly. It says, the duopoly isn't unbreakable because they're unbeatable. It's unbreakable because the economics of breaking in are impossible to justify. It's just that simple. Which really leaves us with one final big question. Knowing everything we know now about the $30 billion price tag, the 10-year wait, the near certainty of failure, who on earth would be brave enough, or maybe just crazy enough, to even try to be the next one to take on the giants of the sky?